Spread love, man.
Especially in your world of space and time, usually the first reflection will look the same as it used to. Because this gives you an opportunity to reinforce the state of being by responding to the circumstances that look the same differently than you did before. And that is where you then allow the circumstances to truly reflect that you have changed and demonstrate that you truly have changed by responding to the circumstances differently, even if they look the same as they used to. That's how it works. So the first reflection will usually be an echo of how it used to look. You must not respond to the echo as if that's the representation of your new state.
Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive?
Absolutely. Always ready to explore.
Right on. So today we're diving into something I find really intriguing, this whole idea that circumstances don't matter.
Oh, that's a juicy one. I can already tell this is going to be interesting.
Yeah, a listener sent in this YouTube video from a channel called Manifesting Abundance with a speaker named Bashar.
Okay, yeah, I've seen a couple of their videos. They're all about, like, using the power of your mind to create your reality.
Exactly. And the listener who sent this in, they're really interested in how much power our internal state actually has over our external world.
Yeah, that's a big question a lot of people grapple with, right? Like, how much control do we really have over our lives?
Totally. And this video, it jumps right into this whole idea of state of being. Bashar, the speaker, he argues that it's not our external stuff, like money, relationships, success, that really shapes our reality.
It's more about our inner world, right? Thoughts, feelings, beliefs, all that jazz.
You got it. It's like he's saying that our internal world is way more powerful than we often realize.
Which, honestly, kind of turns the whole success paradigm on its head, doesn't it?
Totally. And to illustrate this point, he uses this really interesting analogy. He compares reality to, get this, clay.
Clay, okay, I'm intrigued. How does that work?
So he's saying that if we approach life from a place of fear or negativity, what he calls a low vibration, that clay becomes really rigid, like almost impossible to mold or change.
So it's like we're stuck in a rut, our reality's hardened, and it's tough to break free.
Exactly. But then he says when we shift our energy, we start feeling more joyful, playful, what he calls a high vibration.
The clay becomes soft and malleable, right?
Yeah.
Like we can actually start shaping our reality the way we want.
You got it. It's like suddenly we have the power to mold our lives in a whole new way.
Okay, I see where he's going with this.
Right.
And you know what's really interesting? This whole clay metaphor, it actually lines up with some pretty cool scientific research.
Oh, really? Like what kind of research?
Well, there's this whole field called neuroplasticity, which basically explores how our brains are constantly changing and adapting based on our experiences.
Right. I've heard a little bit about that. It's like our brains aren't static. They're constantly rewiring themselves.
Exactly. And a big part of what influences that rewiring process is, you guessed it, our thoughts and beliefs, what we focus on most of the time.
So you're saying if we're always focusing on the negative, our brains are actually getting better at, being negative.
Unfortunately, yeah. But the good news is the opposite is true too.
So the more we can cultivate positive emotions, beliefs, all that good stuff, the more our brain rewires itself to be more positive.
That's the idea. It's like we're training our brains for happiness, just like we can train our bodies for strength or endurance. And that's where the real power of this concept comes in.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. But it also kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it?
What's that?
Well, if it were really that simple to, just change our thoughts and suddenly our whole reality shifts,
Like we'd all be living on rainbows with pet unicorns by now.
Exactly. So how come it's not that easy?
Well, it's interesting you say that because Bashar actually addresses this exact point in the video.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he talks about something called the echo effect.
The echo effect. Ooh, that rings a bell. It was something about how our external circumstances don't always immediately change, even when we're doing the inner work, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
It's almost like our outer reality hasn't quite caught up with our internal transformation yet.
Right. It's like you redecorate your entire apartment, but you can still kind of see the outlines of where the old furniture used to be.
That's a great way to put it. And, a lot of people, they hit this echo phase and they just give up.
Oh, I can totally see that happening. You're like, putting in all this effort, trying to change your thoughts, trying to cultivate more positivity, but nothing seems to be changing in your external world.
It can be super discouraging, for
Yeah.
sure. But Bashar, he's adamant that this echo phase, it's actually a really crucial part of the process.
Oh, really? Why is that?
Well, he describes it as a kind of test. It's like the universe's way of making sure we're really serious about this whole internal shift thing.
So it's like the universe is saying, okay, you say you want to change, but let's see if you really mean it.
Exactly. And the key to passing this test, according to Bashar, is to, well, respond differently
You respond differently to what?
to those old familiar circumstances, even when they keep showing up. It's about not falling back into those same old patterns, those same old reactions.
So like if my go-to reaction to stress is to completely freak out, maybe instead I try taking a few deep breaths, maybe going for a walk, trying to approach the situation with a calmer mindset.
That's exactly it. Because even though the external situation might be the same old stressor, your internal response is completely different.
And that different response, that's what proves to the universe, or I guess to ourselves, that we've actually made an internal shift.
Bingo! And every time we choose a response that's aligned with our desired state of being, whether it's calmness or confidence or whatever it might be, we're reinforcing those neural pathways in our brains.
It's like we're literally rewiring our brains to respond differently to the world around us.
Which, if you think about it, is kind of mind-blowing. We have way more power to shape our experiences than we often give ourselves credit for.
Absolutely. And, it makes me think about all those times we try to change a habit or break free from a limiting belief.
Oh, totally.
Like we often give up because we don't see results right away. But maybe, just maybe, we're actually in that echo phase. And if we can just hang in there a little longer, keep responding differently, eventually things will start to shift.
That's a powerful way to look at it for sure.
Uh-huh.
And speaking of tools that can help us navigate that echo phase and really solidify our internal shifts, Bashar talks about the power of mantras.
Mantras, huh? Okay, I'm going to be honest, that's where I usually get a little skeptical.
Skeptical, how so?
I don't know, I guess I tend to associate mantras with like overly simplistic self-help stuff. Like just repeating a phrase isn't actually going to change anything,
I
right?
totally get where you're coming from. It can definitely seem a little woo-woo on the surface.
Right. But I'm open to hearing what Bashar has to say about it. What's his take on mantras?
Well, he actually suggests, get this, using the core phrase itself, kind of like an affirmation. So, repeating to yourself, circumstances don't matter, only state of being matters.
Okay. I see what he's going for, but I gotta say, part of me is like, really? Isn't that a little, I don't know, simplistic?
Simplistic, how so?
Well, like, I get the empowering message behind it, taking control of your inner world. But what about when circumstances actually, well, really do matter? Like, if someone's dealing with a serious illness or they've lost their job, it just seems kind of tone deaf to be like, it's all in your mind, just change your thoughts and everything will be fine.
Oh, absolutely, I hear you. And honestly, I think it's super important to approach this whole concept with a lot of nuance. Bashar's not saying we should just ignore difficult situations or pretend everything's perfect when it's not.
Right, because toxic positivity helps no one.
Exactly. It's not about denying reality. It's more about, I think, recognizing that even within those tough circumstances, we still have a choice.
A choice about what?
A choice in how we respond to what's happening,
Yeah.
how we process our emotions, how we choose to show up, even when things are hard.
Okay, yeah. That makes me think about Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He talks about how even in the concentration camps, people still had this, like, freedom to choose their attitude, their inner response to what was happening.
Exactly. That's such a powerful example. It really highlights the resilience of the human spirit, Even when faced with unimaginable suffering, we still have this capacity to choose our thoughts, our focus, and, in a way, our experience.
So it's not that external circumstances don't matter at all, but more like their power over us lessens when we focus inward on our state of being, our values, our responses.
Exactly. It's like, yeah, stuff happens, that's life, but we get to decide how we let it affect us.
We can't always control the hand we're dealt, but we can control how we play our cards.
Love that analogy.
Yeah.
And it brings us back to that really powerful question we touched on earlier. If our circumstances are like a mirror reflecting our inner world, what is our current reality reflecting back to us?
That's a pretty profound question when you really think about it. What are those patterns, those beliefs, those, I don't know, maybe even fears that are showing up in our lives right now?
Right. And the beautiful thing about that question is it invites us to get curious. not to judge ourselves, but to really look inward and understand ourselves on a deeper level.
It's like instead of asking, why is this happening to me, we can ask, what can I learn from this? What needs to shift within me to create a different experience?
Now you're getting it.
Yeah.
It's about taking responsibility for our own energy, our own growth, our own lives.
This has been a pretty mind-blowing conversation. So as we wrap things up here, what would you say are some of the key takeaways you hope our listeners walk away with?
Well, first and foremost, I hope they feel empowered. Like, yeah, life can be challenging, but we have more power to shape our experiences than we often realize.
It all starts with that internal shift.
Exactly. And secondly, I hope they're walking away with a sense of curiosity about themselves, their beliefs, their patterns. Because self-awareness is where real transformation begins.
And it's a journey, right? It's not about being perfect. It's about constantly learning and growing.
Ted, couldn't have said it better myself.
Awesome. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. Thanks for taking us there.
Anytime. Always a pleasure chatting with you and our awesome listeners.
Special thanks to Miss Spread Love Movement.